Council,
my
this is serious
glasses.
stuff.
Good evening and welcome to a regularly scheduled meeting of the City of Hartford Common Council. I believe,
Churchy.
yes, Turchy's absent and excused. Other than that, thank you all for coming. All proper notices were sent. And I'd like if you'd please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Roll call.
The
Lori?
mayor and all alderpersons are present except Alderperson Turchy and Carroll, who are absent and excused.
Thank you. We have before us the unanimous consent agenda. President Hagee. Move to approve, second by Alderperson Sikora.
Motion by Alderperson Hagy, seconded by Alderperson Sikora, approving the following two items on the unanimous consent agenda. Number one, the Common Council minutes of August 23rd, 2022. And number two, the purchase of 100 utility poles from Bell Lumber and Pole Company at a cost not to exceed $80,485.80.
Thank you. Any comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. Communications,
I
Lori.
have nothing this evening.
Okay. As for appearances and citizens' comments, we have several that are listed. The first one is Patrick Rich from Edward Jones for a transient merchant license. If you'd please come up to the podium, state your name and address, your business, and what you'd like to do.
Good evening to the council. Thanks for taking the time to see me this evening. As said earlier, my name is Patrick Rich, and I represent Edward Jones. It's a financial services company. Actually, the first Edward Jones office was opened by my father, Roger Rich, in, I think, 1985. So he actually appeared before the council to get the permit as well. I won't actually be selling anything door to door or anything like that. Obviously, the financial services industry is highly regulated. All I would really like to do is obtain the permit or the transient merchant's license in order to introduce myself to the community. I won't be selling anything to door, but just to ingratiate myself to different neighborhoods that aren't familiar with me already.
Thank you.
You can pick up your permit in the clerk's office. It'll be ready anytime tomorrow.
Anytime tomorrow? Okay.
There you go. That was simple enough. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Next, we have the Executive Director, Leif Erickson, and Development Specialist, Gene McDaniel from Flight for Life.
Good evening, Mayor, Common Council members. Leif Erickson, Executive Director, Flight for Life, 2661 Aviation Road, Waukesha is our corporate headquarters. Flight for Life, as you know, has been a community partner since 1984 to southeastern Wisconsin. And over the years, we've looked at our volume in our service area. We did a study back in 2017 and 18 and identified that our volume is equally split south of Interstate 94 and north of Interstate 94. So our intentions are to open a base of operations at the Hartford Airport. It'd be a 24/7 operations. We'd have 3 crew members there 24/7, and we anticipate approximately 300 flights per year out of that location. We looked at other airports. We looked at Juneau. We looked at West Bend. Hartford is the ideal location for us, being the airport has done many improvements over the years, including the Jet A fuel that was installed this summer, and we do have IFR approaches there for the aircraft. So that is our intention. I'm open to any questions or comments.
Daryl, is this the time that we ask about the free helicopter rides? Is that?
He's already trying to get one, so.
In the front seat, not the back.
Yeah.
I
What we
was
tell
humor,
people,
everybody. Don't start sending emails, please.
right, nice to see it up close unless you're the one getting the ride, so.
Super. Go ahead, President Hagee.
When do you plan to be in operation here in Hartford?
Our goal is November 1st. The holdup is, we're still working through the lease with Air Methods because we'll be leasing their hangar, which I'm hoping will be done very shortly. We've went back and forth a few times in a friendly fashion. But Spectrum is the holdup. Our operation relies heavily on internet capabilities for our charting, for weather checks for the pilots, and all the other aviation requirements. So hopefully that work, the underground boring will be done by October 27th. But if we can get in there before, we can start setting up our operations and then hopefully be live. A goal, November 1st.
Very
Thank
good.
you. Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Our next item on schedule is County Executive Josh Schoman and Sheriff Marty Schulteis from Washington County. Just state your names, your addresses, and you get 3 glorious minutes.
All right, very good. All right, Schulte, Sheriff of Washington County, Sheriff's Office in West Bend, Wisconsin. So first off, I just want to thank the lady and gentleman for allowing us the opportunity today to talk about the public safety referendum that we're proposing on the November ballot. And it's a discussion that, for our staffing for the Sheriff's Office, that has been going on probably for, I would guess, maybe about 5 years. And that's really 2 sheriffs, probably 3 county board chairmen, probably 4 different variations of our county board, and now a new county executive. What it is, it's a $3.6 million perpetual referendum. It's a big ask, and I fully understand that. It's not for any infrastructure buildings. It is strictly personnel. It's for about a 15% increase in our total staffing at the Sheriff's Office, and that comes to about 30 positions spread across all of the different divisions, jail, operations, administration, communications. And so I'm not sure if Hartford Police Department has ever done a staffing study, but there's a kind of several different variations of how they're done. There's a minimum manpower study that can be done. There can be a per capita, how many cops per 1,000 residents. There can be a workload study or kind of a combination thereof. And so what I wanted to do is kind of break this and trying to be very cognizant of your time, try to break this down into 3 different areas. Number 1, the data that drives the request. Number 2, I think probably which if I was seated in your seat, I would be wondering what's in it for Hartford. That's a very valid question for elected officials on your behalf. And then the third part is kind of have the executive come up here and kind of explain why the referendum versus any other process, and he can kind of get into the fiscal part of it. But the workload studies that we did, the data that drives behind it is kind of a combination of all of those models that I said. What is kind of most telling to me are 2 of them. It's the minimum manpower study and the per capita study. And what a minimum manpower, I asked all of our captains of our division, what do you think is the proper minimum manpower that we need to have boots on the grounds or boots in the jail to operate, to respond to emergencies, et cetera, et cetera. And I've got over saying this publicly. I don't like saying it, but our staffing on the road, at least patrol officers, has not drastically changed since the late 1980s. We had the county, if you can imagine, is broken up into 3 kind of different areas. Highway 33 to the north, from county line to county line, between Highway 33 and Highway 60 is one area, and then anything south of 60. And each one of those areas is about 144 square miles, understanding that there's municipalities in there too that have their own police departments. And then we also break it down the county into halves, a north half and a south half. So anything south of Highway K to Germantown, basically, and anything north of Highway K to Farmington, basically. And so on a first shift weekend, I'll give you an example, of 4th of July this year, we had 5 deputies working. 1 of those deputies in each one of those areas, the 3 areas, and then 1 north half and 1 south half. As you can imagine, that's not, the whole goal of police work should be to prevent and deter, and what we've become is more of a reaction mode. And we certainly, when any resident anywhere in the county dials 911, you're going to get a cop there. There's no doubt about it. But I think what we're learning is that there's been a lot of changes in Washington County since 1988 as far as population and growth. And our sheriff's office, at least the minimum staffing on patrol, has not kept up with that model.
You pull your mic up just a little bit.
Sure. So the other real telling aspect is the per capita ratio, and that's the number of cops per 1,000 residents. And as you can imagine, the sheriff's office has the largest geographical area. I think that just makes sense. We cover from Erin to Farmington. What you might not realize is actually the amount of population we serve. The sheriff's office serves by far the largest population of the county, and subtracting all the municipal police departments, we service about 51,000 county residents, which is about Germantown and West Bend combined, pretty close to that, maybe a little less than that. What's disturbing to me is that I compared our ratio of officers for all the sheriff's departments in southeastern Wisconsin, and there's only one sheriff's office that's lower than us. That's our neighbors to the north, Fond du Lac. They're at 1.4 deputies per 1,000 residents. We're at 1.5 thousand, or 1.5 cops per 1,000. I did that same ratio for all the law enforcement agencies in Washington County, and we're actually at the bottom of that ratio. The national average, which I think is a little high, is 2.4 officers per 1,000. There isn't actually a Washington County agency that's that high, but at 1.5, we're much more in that reaction mode. If the referendum were to pass, what this does is brings us up to 1.8 officers per 1,000, which puts us right in the middle. There are 3 agencies that have a higher staffing than that, and 3 agencies that have a lower staffing than that. So we tried to be kind of fiscally minded. We're not trying to get top shelf, the most personnel, but I think that we deserve to be a little more proactive for the public that we serve. One of the things that is driving it also is some of the crime trends that are occurring in Washington County, and Hartford is no different than that. I would never say that our crime rate is out of control and things are just are dire, but there are some very disturbing crime trends that are occurring that are, it's really, I'll be very honest, it's crime that's bleeding into our counties, from the south particularly, but from all over. Over 1/2 of all of our jail bookings, and there's about 4,500 per year, over half of those are not Washington County residents at all. They come from different counties. About 25%, or 23, 24% right now, specifically come from the county, Milwaukee County. And that's a disturbing trend that in 2014, that number was 14%, and it just keeps going up and up and up. And I see what's happening. And like I said, I think we have at least the obligation to put it forth to the public if they want more police presence in Washington County. Now, what's in it for Hartford? And like I said, it's a very valid question. So I also did that same per capita analysis for our neighbors to the east, Ozaukee County. And I took all of the police departments and all the sheriff's departments, and I wanted to know what is their per capita ratio for the entire county. And their ratio is 2.2 officers per 1,000 residents. In Washington County, we're at 1.7 if you factor all the police departments and the sheriff's office together. So in general, we don't have the same amount of public safety staffing as a comparable county, and we use Ozaukee as a comparable because it's adjacent county to us. One of the things that I want to propose to the police chiefs is part of the staffing plan is to have it's 3 deputies and 3 social workers that are embedded as a team, so a deputy and a social worker. It's for 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, that they would be available to respond. Primarily, the chiefs need to make this decision, but they would respond reactively to calls out into the county, any mental health issues that are occurring. And then when they are not reacting to calls. I want them to be a proactive approach, dealing with individuals that we know are a known problem, and we want to keep them out of our criminal justice system and keep them out of our mental health and our jails. And so that's one of the aspects that I think is really important. It's not a novel idea. Departments all over the country are doing that. And so one of the advantages to the local police departments for that is oftentimes, I'll use Hartford as an example, an officer is at a house where you're dealing with an individual that's suicidal. They call, the model right now is they call ACS, or Acute Care Services. Acute Care Services is supposed to come out from West Bend and do a face-to-face evaluation. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it's a phone consult, and I don't think that when they do that phone consult that they get a true and accurate representation of what's going on. So what I want to propose to the police chiefs is that mobile crisis team would respond directly to any calls in the county to do that face-to-face assessment, and so we make sure that face-to-face thing is done. The other aspect that I think is very, very important is the jail operations. So most of the positions deal with the patrol operations, but there's a significant amount, 9 or 10 of them, that deal with the jail and the safety and security of the jail and the mental health aspects in the jail. And every municipality in the county uses the jail, obviously. And so that's a very important aspect that needed to be included in this referendum. And then the other aspect is all of the agencies in Washington County work extremely well together. If Hartford Police Department needs our assistance, we will bend over backwards to help them, and vice versa. Hartford PD, if we ask for their assistance, they will help us. I'll give you an example. It just happened 2 hours ago. We had a 13-year-old that had a knife down in Thompson, and we didn't have a squad close. So we leaned on Hartford Police Department for help, and they sent a patrol officer down to Thompson. That's great. I'm glad we have that resource available. But the problem is, he was there for several minutes by himself. He was able to de-escalate the situation. Everything turned out fine. But I don't like having to draw your village or city assets out of your village like that if I can avoid it. So those are kind of the driving factors behind the decisions and the ask. I think maybe I'll invite the executive up here to kind of go through what the fiscal impact is and what drove him to use the referendum as a method.
I got a question before he does.
Sure.
Go ahead. So, I love your executive summary. I think it kind of gives a good overview of what you talked through, but if residents in our local viewing audience here, as well as any other individuals that want information on the detail of where you came to this, do you have something online or somewhere that showed what the study was and how you came to these conclusions? If we're going to do a referendum, I'm hoping we're reacting to more than just a 2-page assessment, that they can kind of do their own homework on that, and where would that be?
Very, very fair question. We just had those discussions off campus this morning, matter of fact, that we want to erect hopefully a website that has that information. We're going to have some direct mailings that are done with the information. Social media is going to have some, but there's also going to be a 10-page white paper that's done that highlights all of the details to it, that we are going to invite. I think there's 4 or 5 listening sessions throughout the county, and I believe one is we're trying to schedule in the city of Hartford at the high school, where citizens can come and ask direct questions. They can get a copy of that 10-page white paper and view it for themselves.
Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead.
Do you have a time frame when that papers and others are going to be completed so that they will have them?
Yes, the timeframe for the paper should be out by the end of this week or early next week.
Okay.
So to speak specifically to why the referendum, I don't think it's a shock to anybody, especially if you're watching television today or something on social media. It's tough financial times. No ifs, ands, or buts. Also, crime, not just around the area in Washington County and southeast Wisconsin, but across the country, is skyrocketing. This creates in Washington County a values conflict. As very conservative county, the most conservative in the state, as I like to say. Public safety, law enforcement, safe and secure community is our highest priority in county government. And small government and lower taxes is what we're all about. I've come to talk to you many times, and almost every time I'm talking about lower tax rates, lower levy, less government buildings, less acres, basically less government in every metric possible. This is a little different. Actually, it's exactly different. It's 180 degrees the opposite. We've reduced staff by 8% since I've been at the county. This is increasing by 4%. So we'll still be smaller, but not quite as small. It's why I think it's exactly the reason we go to the people. There are a number of county board supervisors that wanted to make the decision themselves. You guys all operate budgets. You know, with levy limits the way they are, there's really only one way to game play, and that's to start borrowing money. Once you get in that cycle, you don't get out of it. And so I felt strongly, if we're going to have an ask of this variety, do the opposite of what we normally do, the constituents, the people, Washington County, the voters should be the ones making the decision. So that white paper that we just talked about, that you just asked that question about, it's really written for the people to be able to make an informed decision. And I felt strongly that we do that. Those 30 and a half positions that we talked about and that $3.6 million, what does that mean? You see in the white paper, it means a 9 cent per thousand reduction in the tax rate. Now, I know tax rates are variable and they're one data point, but they're an important data point. It's important, though, to note what would happen if the referendum failed. Well, the tax rate, if the budget stays as it currently is, designed, and we have a biennial budget, so next year's budget is currently not set in stone, but set in wood. The only county with a biennial budget. But that tax rate would drop 27 cents per thousand. So on a $300,000 home, you're talking about a reduction of $27 if this were to pass. You're talking about triple that. Okay, what does that come out to? About $82, $83, doing quick math in my head, if it is to fail. So it's real money. It's your money. As the constituents watching today, it's their money. It's their choice. I felt very, very strongly about that. When I ran for county executive, one of the things I ran on was living within our means. And there's no doubt this is not within our means. We don't have the operating cash as Washington County to be able to pay for this on our own. And so if we're going to go outside of our means, then we're going to go to the constituents and ask them. One of the questions that we've gotten pretty frequently in that regard is, why don't you just use the sales tax? Well, two reasons. One will come in front of you in the next several months, and that is we took some of the freed up sales tax and the new sales tax that has been generated in the last few years. During COVID, it actually has skyrocketed. We've used some of that to actually fund our radio system, which all municipalities and the county as a whole benefit from. We're going to be putting together a grant program so that radios and improvements to all the radio system are free to the municipalities but charged to the sales tax directly. That's never happened before. The county has borrowed in the past for those projects, which means you're getting taxed for it in addition to the sales tax. Now the sales tax on its own is going to take care of that. So again, there's other things that we've done with that sales tax. What you've noticed, hopefully, during my tenure as county executive, is I've proposed and the board has approved cutting the tax levy, not just not taking net new construction, but actually not taking net new construction plus cutting the levy. So as sales tax has grown, we've been giving it back that way. There's no tax refunds like you see at the state level or the federal level, no Biden bucks or Trump bucks, but we are cutting the levy. And that's why you see on that graph the tax rate dropping so fast, as well as property values are going through the roof, almost quite literally. 13.3% property value increased in Washington County in this year alone. That's the biggest increase we've seen since the 1990s. So as a community, our means have grown, even though we're stress test during this Bidenflation and gas prices going through the roof. But I feel like these things are so important. What we're seeing with, the sheriff has indicated with crime, you know, we could talk about anecdotes all day long, and we do out in the community, but the data speaks for itself. The population of that jail would be decreasing if it was just Washington County residents. And it's doing the opposite, unfortunately. So what this comes down to is that proactive, Do we want more time in schools all across Washington County by deputies, liaison officers? Do we want proactive drug task force individuals both within the county and outside of the county? Those are things we don't have as much as we'd like right now. And I hope at the end of the day, this is a really good community conversation between the fiscal hawks who are concerned about their pocketbook, or the person who's having a hard time paying that 33% increase in their gas bill from We Energies, and the individual who's legitimately concerned, sleeping with one eye open at night, concerned about somebody breaking into their house or hijacking their car, or those types of things. These are our two highest priorities, and we need to have a discussion as a Washington County family about them. So when all is said and done, anybody who's outside of these county boundaries who thinks about coming to this county or coming through this county and committing a crime, I hope they know this county is having conversations about defending the police, adding more funding to the police. If you come here, you're going to get arrested, you're going to get charged, you're going to get prosecuted, and you're going to get thrown in prison. And we've got work to do in the DA's office and with our judges in that regard too. And that comes in the early part of next year. But this is a real proactive move and discussion we can have as a community right now. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the opportunity to come and talk. Thank you, Alderman, for the chance to present to you. Again, we're happy to take any additional questions if you have them, but if nothing else, we ask you to please vote November 8th.
Any questions? Go ahead, President Heggie.
Well, as you know, the townships pay lower taxes than the municipalities do. And one of the things that was proposed a number of years ago, and I don't know whatever happened to it other than it somewhere along the way it died, would be part of the cost that we have a police department here, and yet we're also paying for the county sheriffs. So should not more of that burden be put on the townships and less on the municipalities?
Gee, who brought that up?
Yeah, your mayor and you speak very similar on the subject matter.
But I'm remembering it from years ago, and nothing recent, but that may well be. At any rate, if you're
minds
going
think
to do
alike
an
in this
increase, we're still paying our share of what's
Sure.
currently out there. So if you do an increase, and you were to apply the increase only to the towns, that would make their taxes higher and more in line with the municipalities' taxes and more in line with fairness. That I know would be quite a bite to take.
Equity. Just kidding.
Well, that would be equity, because there
Thank
are
you.
municipalities that actually use the sheriff's department. Well, they would be included in paying for it.
Yeah, and it's a double-edged sword, right? I mean, where do we end up seeing most of the crime happening? And where does it get caught most of the time? The villages and the cities.
Right.
So that's a hard discussion to have. Certainly, our system isn't built for that. I can't solve every problem, as I
No, and
talked to
I
talked to a few
understand
people
that.
about with the court system. I don't know if you know this or not, but every judge in Washington County since Annette Ziegler has been appointed by a Democrat, believe that or not. So yes, we have lots of other areas that need to be worked on. I'd love to see the state of Wisconsin step up and actually be funding this so we don't have to have this conversation. But we haven't had that. We haven't had it with several governors in a row, and you guys know tax levy limits as well as anybody. Started under Governor Doyle, kept going under Governor Walker, got tighter. Governor Evers hasn't gotten rid of them. I'm quite certain Governor Michaels wouldn't get rid of them. And frankly, nor should they. But at the end of the day, this is why the legislature gave us this tool. If you think it's so important that taxes should go up or resources are needed in these types of regards, then go to the public. And that's why we're here today.
Well, I'll agree the resources are needed, and I'll agree that we probably need to add to the sheriff's department, et cetera. That's great. I'm just talking about the fairness issue and how do we resolve that?
I appreciate that.
I don't know that we have a method of doing it on the short term, probably not. This is something that needs to be more of a long-term solution.
I would say that it might be a little bit difficult to separate some of the costs because, like our court services is part of our operational budget. We have 4 or 5 full-time positions to that. Our multi-jurisdictional drug unit, we have many more positions assigned to that than the municipalities. We should, because we're lead agencies. And I'm happy to say that Hartford is a part of that agreement now. And I think we could probably make the same argument about the state patrol too, and, how, should we be paying for the state patrol too, if you have your own police department? I'm just not sure where you draw that line, but it's probably a valid discussion.
I guess that's all I could ask for.
I will tell you, the radio system, I mentioned the grant program. As we begin to roll that out, that's actually calculated into part of how the formula ought to work. Is some of it's population-based, some of it's equalized value-based. So you're trying to figure out some semblance of equity.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Any other questions? If not, gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to ask the patience of the folks if we can take just a 3-minute bio break, please. I'll be right back.
I won't touch your phone. Because I used to tell my kids, go before you come to church.
Simple as that. Well, I've had experience an opportunity like that. It has been talked about.
35 concerts this year that I've been working with.
Really?
And every one of them.
You okay? No,
I
you're
didn't ask
okay.
any more questions because I knew he was boiling over there, so that's the mayor.
Oh, he ain't bullying. Not good.
Boiling over.
I thought you had
No, I wanted to follow a question, but I could see the urgency in his face.
Okay.
I just,
Okay. That's cute. Not on my watch, right?
Thank you very much. We'll call the meeting back to order. And at this time, we do have citizen comments. Anybody wishing to, I shouldn't say anybody, it should be any city resident wishing to come up. You're welcome to come up to the podium, state your name and address, and you get 3 glorious minutes. And you are?
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Ken McCulloch. I live at 805 Willow Lane. I've been a resident of the city of Hartford for 20 years, and in April, I became a county board supervisor for District 10, basically kind of the south side, most of the south half of the city of Hartford, delineated by Highway 60. You just listened to Sheriff Schulteis and to County Executive Showman, and they told you about Resolution 27 at the meeting last month. That went to a vote, and I was a very firm no on that going to referendum. And I just wanted to share with you and to the people that are listening today why I did that if they didn't see any of the notes, with regard to that. To me, the scale at a time like this, asking people for 10% more at a time when today the stock market went down 1,200 points. It's 3.5%. If you have a 401k, your net worth just took a 3.5% hit. Inflation today, the CPI, almost 9%. And we're going to go and ask people for another 10%. The county executive talked about a couple of things. He spoke about the tax levy. I said at the meeting, and I'll say it here today, I don't like it when someone talks tax levy, when they talk about the mill rate and the tax rate. And the reason for that is you can talk about that, and the value of your property goes up just because it goes up, and it also goes down. And so everyone likes to talk that their tax and their mill rate goes down when property values are going up. But when property values go down, and that's going to happen, then no one's talking tax rate. You're not going to be paying less taxes if you vote the referendum in. You're going to be paying more. The property value of my home is going to go up. I'll be paying more taxes. And so to me, there's just a tone deafness to this at this time, coming off of 2 years when a lot of people lost income, privately employed people. You got set back on your retirement plans. That's going to cost you years. Inflation is robbing you of money. And again, here the county is going for another 10%. There could have been a different path. And the path simply is to say that we could have looked at this problem of crime, and we could have taken it in bites. And we could have, raised the levy. There's a levy limit that we have. We could have incrementally sort of feathered things into this instead of at, again, a time when people are really getting gut punched, throwing 10% at them. And no way in good conscience could I vote for that to go to referendum, and no way do I want to be a part of that. And I would recommend to anybody who's watching this and anyone who lives in the city of Hartford who's protected by our great police department, that they should vote for this. I also wanted to congratulate, this body, because I know there's been direction by the Common Council to hold the city's tax, levy flat. And that is really admirable. If you're able to pull that off or come close to that, that is an admirable goal, because people really are suffering. And that really shows the compassion for what's going on right now. And we have a police force, and we have crime issues. We're able to handle our issues. I think the county government needs to do that as well. Adding 13% to any department, and that's what this would be. You have 180 people, you're adding 30 and a half, that's 13% more to any part of government is never something I will sign up for. And I don't care what part of that is. And people want to say that, well, if you're doing that, you're anti-police if you don't want to do that. No, I'm anti-big government, just to be clear. I would do that for any department that asks for that. So that's, a reason why, I have voted against that. And I wanted to say that I didn't think that the idea of going to a referendum was something that we needed to do, that we could have brought that home, again, in bites and just gone to look at our levy. And so this doesn't mean that if this gets voted down, that these things can't be incrementally added as we go along the way. It just means you're not going to do it all at once. I also wanted to address the point that really the other issue is this is not going to solve the problems that the county executive and the sheriff are discussing. We have a problem. There's a fentanyl crisis in this country. That's a byproduct of open borders, and that problem can only be solved by the federal government. We have a problem with, judges and district attorneys who are letting recidivist criminals back out, not giving them, not holding them under bail. The county executive alluded to that. This doesn't solve that problem. That really is the problem. It's the same people who are just let go and they repeat the same crimes. This isn't going to solve that. The only thing that will solve that is the decisions people make this November. And in November, 2 years from today. That will solve this problem. Spending 10% and putting people further behind the 8 ball isn't going to do it. So again, my recommendation is to anybody who lives in my district is that you vote against this, vote this down, and I hope that, I hope it loses, and I hope it goes down by a wide margin to send a message that we need to have more compassion for the taxpayer in our city and in our county.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak, address the city council? All you have to do is come up, state your name and your address, get 3 glorious minutes. Anybody else? Hearing none, next is the mayor's report. My big thing, of course, is what goes across the street for me. It was hamstrung during COVID. It is back again this year, which is nice, and that's Buckskinner's. And I believe that's the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, correct, is what's going on? We have, in fact, here, we have Randy right here, and it's happening in your park at Woodlawn Union Park. And it's always neat to see the orange things go up. I know that they have taken a hit, and there are certain groups that aren't there, so it's not quite as big, but big enough to be a place you need to go. I don't know, Randy, if you wanted to comment on what's going on with Buckskinner's. This will be your first one as the boss.
It is my first one as the director. It is taking place. It's happening. Weather has not deterred them from setting up. So, yeah, it's happening this weekend.
Sounds great.
All right.
All right, well, so make sure, again, Woodlawn Union Park, to get out, support the Buckskinner's. We're one of the communities that is fortunate enough to still have one. There are a lot of communities that don't. We still do. It is a whole lot of fun, so this weekend, Woodlawn Union Park, be there or be square. With that, we go to aldermanic request. President Hagee.
Okay, tomorrow night, the Mid-Moraine Legislative Committee will be meeting at the Jackson Village Hall at 7 p.m. Washington County Towns Association and others in attendance will be there to discuss the possibility of, going along with what we're talking about tonight, having Washington County sharing part of the sales tax, future increases. Not the sales tax that's there, but if the formulas for sales tax change this fall, which it is entirely possible may happen, that at that point, the municipalities and townships would like to share in some of that increase in tax revenue. Then the other item would be a discussion of any changes to the voting laws in Wisconsin as a result of Supreme Court decisions, et cetera. And then one other comment I would like to make is there are a lot of people mowing their lawns and blowing the debris out into the street, and that is not permitted. And it clogs up the sewers, and it's bad enough. Leaf fall is on the way, so you are supposed to be mowing your lawn into your property, not into the street, besides blowing stones and whatever else out into the street. So that would be appreciated if people could watch that more.
Thank you. In fact, I think I saw that in your weekly memo, correct? See, I really read Steve Volkert's weekly memo. Just want that on record. Okay, thank you. Alderperson Rusniak.
Well, as long as Randy is sitting here, we all know that the Veterans Aquatic Center had an excellent, excellent year. I think, Randy, what we'd probably like to see, or I'd like to see, and everybody else would share that, give us a report on, send us an email or something on attendance, on revenues, on expenses. Let us know in the end how we really came out on the excellent season.
We will have that in this week's preview of your weekly memo.
Oh.
It's already a part of that.
Good.
Super, thank you.
Thank you.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, Alderperson Kohler.
Nothing tonight, sir.
Alderperson Garza.
Nothing tonight, Mayor?
Alderperson Fulop.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Alderperson Sikora.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Alderperson Webb.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Thank you. At this time, we have a public hearing, which is a recommendation to approve the Hartford City Tax Fare increase in 2023. I'd like to open the hearing and ask for a reading of the notice.
Notice is hereby given that the public hearing will be held by the City of Hartford at 109 North Main Street, Hartford, Wisconsin, in the Common Council Chambers at 7:00 p.m., September 13th, 2022, for the purpose of considering a taxi fare increase for which federal operating assistance under Section 5307 of the Federal Transit Act is being sought, generally described as follows. The City of Hartford is applying for federal aid for the Hartford City Taxi Service for the period of January 1st, 2023 to December 31st of 2023. The service area of the Hartford City Taxi includes the City of Hartford and 1 mile outside the city limits. The City of Hartford is proposing a 25-cent fare increase above the current standard fare of $3.75 and the senior handicap fare of $3.50. At the hearing, the City of Hartford will afford an opportunity for interested persons or agencies to be heard with respect to the social and economic aspects of the fare increase. Interested persons may submit orally or in writing evidence and recommendations with respect to said fare increase. Additionally, written comments will be considered if sent to Randy Watashik at 125 North Main Street, Hartford, Wisconsin, by September 6, 2022.
Thank you very much. We have explanation of hearing by staff. Who'll be taking that? Is that Randy?
Real simply, this is something that we felt we needed to do budget-wise. Our ridership has been down, gas fares have gone up. This is something we haven't done since, I want to say, 2020. Just the quarter increase there, as was read by Lori there. Regular passengers to $4, seniors to $3.75, and then 8-ticket package would go up from $28 to $30.
Just a reminder that the taxi levy is a levy, it is a tax. So the amount that the taxes help to support this only go up if our costs continue to go up, but our revenues do not. So that's the reason why, as the council has shown in the past, we'd rather have a user fee increase by a very small amount than a tax go up.
Exactly. I have a question, and that is, because gas prices have gone up, obviously that does reflect on what you're doing, that there be any type of marketing that we would say, hey, look, if you're driving from here, here, and then here, it would cost you this much in a taxi, but if you owned a car, or you felt you had to have a car, or even if you borrowed a car and paid for the gas, you're actually saving money using the taxi. I mean, is there anything along that line just to kind of encourage people to maybe try it?
Marketing-wise, I don't believe we've taken that step. I mean, it's certainly something we could look into.
And not something even that we would necessarily have to spend, because we put out those I see them at Quick Trip, I see them at the, the rec center when we put them in the, fall, winter, spring. Something along that line that could be worked out, maybe a half a page. Hey, here's some numbers to look at when you're thinking about taking a taxi type of thing.
Sure.
And have people just consider it. I don't know that other than the staff time to put a little ad together, it wouldn't cost anything to print it because we're already printing it.
Right.
And I would think that something along that line, just to plug the use of the taxi, might actually help out a little bit, and maybe have a little fun thing with different organizations to try the taxi. Because I can honestly tell you, and I'm guilty, I've never ridden the taxi. So maybe it's something that more of us should try and see if it actually fits into the lifestyle. If you've got to shoot somewhere real quick and the kids are stealing the cars, and that you would know how to use the taxi service. So just a thought. With that, appearances for, anybody wish to appear for the approval of the Hartford City Taxi Fare increase in 2023? Looking appearances for. Anybody appearances for? Hearing none, we go to appearances against. Anybody wishing to appear against the approval of the Hartford City Taxi Fare increase? Anybody wishing to appear against? Anybody wishing to appear against? Hearing none, discussion by council. Alderperson Kohler.
Yeah, so I actually did ride the taxi in the last 6 months. Actually, but right after I had surgery, I had used the taxi, take me back and forth to the clinic. And I will say that our service that we have here in Hartford is very, very responsive. I'll say that they've been very, very strong with taking and being accommodating for those who have done it. I see that. And I do know, I mean, as you look at it, and we're going into the budget season as well, you know, when you start looking at the fair pricing of what we're paying, you know, some of the taxi drivers, and we're having quite a bit of turnover, and we're having people leave because of, you know, some of those reasons, with what other companies are paying employees. I think that in my personal opinion, looking what I paid for my ride was very reasonable, and what they're asking for, I don't think is over the edge. So, just my opinion on what we're thinking there.
And one thing I'll add about our drivers themselves, they do care about their customers. If you saw our weekly memo, one of our drivers, Cheryl Burns, has helped out no fewer than 7 seniors who are getting scammed. She knows where they go, she knows their routes, and she'll question why are we going to the bank? Why do you have all that cash? And with the assistance of the PD. And that's just one example. Many of our drivers care about our riders, and it's really is a personal service, more so than just a ride across town.
Thank you, Alderperson Rusniak.
I think most of us sit here and we hate to see a fee increase of any sort.
Sure.
But it's a quarter, it's been a couple of years. All anybody has to do is go to your local gas station, take a look at the price, and you can understand why we need to have a fare increase. It's just plain simple economics.
Right.
Super. President Heggie.
Steve, what is the support level that the city gives through taxes to the taxi service?
Off the top of my head, I'd have to take a look at the budgets. Normally somewhere in the range of $30,000 to $60,000, depending if we're buying a vehicle or not
Right.
that year.
Okay, that's close enough. It's a sizable investment, and this fare increase certainly can help to keep that from rising. So I certainly support the city taxi service.
Super. Any other questions, comments, concerns? If not, I'll close the hearing and ask for action on Resolution 3637, a resolution to increase the 2023 Hartford City taxi passenger fare.
We have to suspend first.
Not with a resolution.
Not a resolution. Only ordinances, right? Okay.
I move to
Approve Joe Kohler, second by Joe Fulop.
I'm sorry, who is the second?
Fulop.
Thank you. Motion by Alderperson Kohler, seconded by Alderperson Fulop for the adoption of proposed resolution 3637.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. The standing committee reports, we do not have anything in Public Works or Utilities. Looking at resolutions and possible actions, Resolution 3638. This is a resolution levying special assessments for unpaid Hartford utility accounts and assessments for special services on the 2022 tax roll. And I believe, will you be taking that?
Sure.
Okay. taken
So
by,
again, this is an annual activity in which we, again, any outstanding bills that the resident would have with the city, be it utilities, be it services rendered, if not paid by the specified time, would then automatically roll onto their taxes, as you're all familiar with. And so this is just basically once a year we do this prior to taxation season.
Super, thank you. Questions, comments? If not, anyone looking to move forward to levy special assessments for unpaid Hartford utility accounts? President Heggie, second by Alderperson Sikora.
Motion by Alderperson Heggie, seconded by Alderperson Sikora for the adoption of proposed resolution 3638.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, we have no first readings. We do have second readings, though, for the ordinances. The second reading and possible action, ordinance number 1461, an ordinance repealing and recreating Chapter 26 of the Municipal Code. I believe that will be taken by our city attorney, Ian Proust.
So before you is the amended chapter from our discussion at the last meeting. Several of the changes are highlighted, so you'll see on page 1, the highlighted language modifying the number of animals. So it's, except as otherwise permitted, no person shall have more than 3 dogs or cats over the age of 5 months, or any combination of dogs or cats numbering more than 4 animals. So that would allow 3 dogs, 3 cats, and then 1 other animal. So you can't have more than, that's as we discussed, you can't have more than 3 of either one. You can have up to 4 total. There is the corresponding change to the total number of domestic animals to 8. I removed the language regarding dangerous dogs and just kept the changes as to the vicious dogs. So we still have a similar process in the rare occasions where a dog would be declared vicious, where we would come to the common council in a worst case scenario if there's a hearing on it. But I can't recall the last time, we have not declared a dog vicious in my knowledge since I've been city attorney. There may have been one, in the last 20 years. So this is not a common occurrence. So we still have the modified language, updated language regarding vicious dogs, but we have removed the provisions regarding dangerous dogs. The other changes I made, there were a couple tweaks, just clarifying things to make sure everything's consistent. So on page 8, I modified the kennel provisions to clarify that it ties to the total number of animals that we set forth in the code, and included because this has become much more of a thing in the however many years since we did the animal code last, added daycare as a kennel requirement. So if somebody's running a doggy daycare, that has to be a kennel license. So basically, if you're caring for more than the 3 dogs or 3 cats, you're gonna require a kennel license. I updated the language in the animal fancier permit to be consistent with the modified language. So you're allowed to have up to 4 dogs or cats, or a total of 5 for a 0.25 acre or less parcel, 5 dogs or cats with a total of 6 for a larger parcel, and then the 10 total domestic animals, which were consistent with the changes to the total dogs and cats. And then I added 26.15, which just clarifies that if somebody allows one of their, other than a dog or cat license, those are regulated separately. But if you have a fancier license, you let it lapse. So you just don't renew it, and you get caught, you can renew it, but there's a $20 penalty. I don't want a situation where people only renew them when they get caught. There's a $20 penalty. I also clarified what I anticipate to be an issue, which is if somebody just doesn't renew the license even after they're warned, or they have a license revoked, it doesn't provide a basis to grandfather the animals they have. Those animals have to be rehomed. They don't have to be removed from the city. You could have a friend down the block who takes the dog. But this doesn't provide them a basis for say, well, we got it when it was legal, we're gonna keep it until it dies. If you have your license revoked with like chickens, you have to get rid of the chickens. If you don't renew your fancier's license or it's revoked, you have to come into compliance with the ordinance. So this just clarifies that, so there's no confusion that that's what the intent of this is.
Okay. Is that it?
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
For now, unless there's changes or questions.
No worries. Alderperson Rusniak.
Just a clarification, in the executive summary, item 2 said there be no more than 7 animals permitted. In your ordinance, item 4 says no more than 8.
Yep, so the executive summary, we didn't redo that. I just modified the ordinance consistent with
So
what we had
what's the
done.
magic number, 7 or 8?
So 8 is what the ordinance says.
8.
7 was what it was originally proposed as, but We didn't modify the executive summary to incorporate the amendments we discussed.
Well, I
It's
read
the same
both
one.
and I got
Yeah,
confused.
sorry, it's the same executive summary that was submitted originally.
Okay.
That's good.
Yep,
So just to clarify, when we pass this, this will allow chickens?
yes.
Okay.
But you can't butcher the dogs.
Wow.
Ooh, that's cruel.
Alderperson Rusnak.
As you know, and Alderperson Turchi isn't here, but him and I voted against chickens. But in respect to this ordinance, which is very well drafted, I'm going to back down and I'm going to support the ordinance. I don't like the chicken part of it, but I can't try to defeat the ordinance for lack, because of the chicken thing, so. So out of respect to the rest of you guys who I know are going to vote for this, I'll go along with you, but still, I don't want any chickens in my neighborhood, so.
President Haggy.
So with respect to Mr. Rusniak's comments there, can we do this as two separate parts of the ordinance? And that way we can vote on the chickens separate from the rest of the ordinance?
Why?
Yeah, we tried that last month, or
Right.
2 weeks
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
Right.
We shot it down.
Yeah, I didn't like the numbers, 6-2.
He's willing to go with it.
Just asking.
I understand.
Thank you,
That's
Dennis.
what you do. Okay, Alderperson Webb.
Yeah, I just wanted to say with respect to the chicken portion of this, I think ultimately this is a personal freedom question. When you buy a piece of property, you get a bundle of sticks that you have on that property, and you can do certain things with it. You can sell it, you can improve it if you get a permit and do certain things. And I think what we're saying here is if you get the right permit and you go through the process the city has requested, then you can do that. I also think the number of people that are actually going to take advantage of this are very small, and so the perceived potential problem is probably much smaller than it's being made out to be. And there's nothing saying that we can't revisit things later in the future if it does become a problem.
I think that goes with the theme from most of the communities you talk to is this is much ado about nothing. We're spending a lot of time for something that is going to affect very few
I
people.
thought the same.
Alderperson Garza.
Yeah, just, I know I might have confused some other aldermen earlier or last meeting with some of my voting no and then yes. To be honest, this whole chicken thing was just kind of on the borderline. I could go either way. I'm not against chickens. I'm not necessarily for chickens. I was hoping my constituents would send me emails, call me, leave messages. Zero. So I'm gonna just vote because this is written well, and it gives the opportunity for those who want chickens to have chickens, and for those who don't have to apply for the permit. So I'll be voting yes because of that.
Super. Any other questions? Looking for a motion to move forward. Alderperson Fulop, Alderperson Sikora.
Motion by Alderperson Fulop, seconded by Alderperson Sikora for the adoption of proposed ordinance 1461.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried.
No, I'm just going to sit here.
Oh, what? Just sit on your nest.
First chickens that end up in my neighborhood, we're going to revisit this ordinance.
Oh, you're funny. Okay, we have another second reading, ordinance number 1462, an ordinance repealing Chapter 21 of the Municipal Code. And with that, we have again our city attorney, Ian Proust.
So as we discussed, Chapter 21 has many provisions pertaining to a health officer, which we haven't had in the memory of most of the employees here. Like I said, my guess is that it went out when the Hartford Hospital was no longer that independent, when it joined Aurora, or, however that corporate merger happened. My guess is that kind of went by the wayside. So it hasn't existed for a long time. We're removing that language. We've moved most of the animal language into the animal code. I know I had mentioned there were a few stragglers in there. I reviewed those prior to this meeting. It's expectorating in public. I don't think we need a separate ordinance to address that. I think disorderly conduct addresses that, sufficiently. And the other two were things that are not needing to be regulated. The sale of foodstuffs on the sidewalk, and I forget what the other one was, but it was it was a holdout from different days. We don't, it's not issues that we need to address. So this repeals chapter 21. The important sections have been moved into the animal code. The rest of it is essentially not needed at this stage.
Thank you. Any questions for the city attorney?
Yeah,
Please, Alderperson Webb.
could you just clarify what expectorating in public is for those?
Spitting.
Yes,
Spitting in
okay.
public.
Just wanted to make sure everybody knew.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. However, that is illegal in China. I do know that. You can be arrested for spitting in public in China.
All you spitters out there, fire away.
So, okay, anybody wishing to move forward with the repealing of Chapter 21 of the Municipal Code? Alderperson Fulop, second by Alderperson Webb.
Motion by Alderperson Fulop, seconded by Alderperson Webb for the adoption of proposed ordinance 1462.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Next item, City Administrator's Report. With that, our City Administrator, Steve Volker.
So item number one is regarding the approval of the subleasing of the hangar from hangar number 75 at the Hartford Municipal Airport to Flight for Life in Waukesha. Again, as was talked about earlier, Flight for Life is looking to get a home base here at the Hartford Municipal Airport and looking to sublease the hangar and living quarters, which is currently being leased by Air Methods Corporation. Again, it's a rarity in which we have a sublease of an existing lease, but in the situation, Flight for Life is looking to, so to speak, test before they buy, and so they want to be able to lease the property that is going to be vacated by Air Methods and make sure that this is a good fit for them moving forward.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yep,
Okay.
just one note, I have been emailing with Air Methods, and email was passed along to Flight for Life. I talked to the representatives here. I would just ask that this be approved contingent upon a final approval of the sublease. They're still ironing out a few things, nothing major, it's just one clause I wanted to
Okay, so whoever
add to that
votes,
lease.
whoever moves forward, please understand that you would be doing this subject to the approval of the sublease. That's not stated here, but that is understood. So if you're looking to motion second or vote on this, then that should be taken into consideration. Go ahead.
The only question I have is with the sublease, I mean, are they gonna, is it basically, we're not gonna have any like gap of service, I mean, right now from the current owner, they're gonna basically fill in so that it's almost like we go without, because I mean, that's a very nice service to have right here in Hartford as well as within the area, so is it kind of?
Yeah, I mean,
really not
Air
a break
Methods
in
is not
service, just
operating
gonna-
at the moment, so doing the sublease will bring Flight for Life in, as soon as they can. You heard that their goal is November 1st. It may not be that date. That's a soft date, but this will certainly facilitate that service coming back here more rapidly than waiting for Air Ventures, or, Air Methods to restaff this location, given there's, helicopter and
Sure.
staffing issues.
Yep.
But in the meantime, that service is available.
Yeah, the service, the addition here just brings it,
Sure.
we're a hub, so instead of
Right.
flying from Waukesha or
Waukesha
Fond du
will come
Lac,
up here, right.
we have a hub here, so yes, it's
If
more
they're
immediate
needed-
service for us, much more immediate service for people further west as well.
Right.
If
And that's
they're
what I wanted
needed
to make
right
sure.
now, they'll come up from Waukesha.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
So there's no,
There,
Gap
it
in
is available,
service.
just not as quickly.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Anybody? Alderperson Webb, is this for moving forward on this?
Oh, I was just gonna say,
Oh.
I'm happy to see that they're gonna have a hub in Hartford, and I think it's a really
Oh.
good thing for our city.
Are you happy enough to move on this?
Yes, I will move to it,
Okay,
subject.
thank you. Alderperson Kohler.
Motion by Alderperson Webb, seconded by Alderperson Kohler, authorizing city officials to sublease hangar lease number 75 at the Hartford Municipal Airport to Flight for Life.
And I think that's conditioned on
Yes,
the.
conditioned upon final approval.
Right,
Right.
correct.
Subject to final approval.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Back to our city administrator, Steve Volkert.
Welcome to the main event. Tonight you will be reviewing, you've been reviewing for the last 2 weeks, the CIP budget for yes? Oh, I'm sorry.
Just had to-
Okay. For 2023 through 2027. This CIP budget, which you've been studying and memorizing for the last 2 weeks, really is kind of a different story than we normally have for a CIP budget, in the fact that we are forecasting the economy based on what's happening to us right now. And so for 2020, usually our odd year budgets are pretty easy. We've already decided what we're going to do. We already borrowed for what we're going to do. All we have to do is say, yes, we're going to continue to do what we did. Unfortunately, then the economy tanked, and so what this budget does is says we're going to continue to do that which we were planning to do in 2022 for 2023. It's just the fact it's going to cost us quite a bit more money, and we're going to be using up our ARPA funding, which we received, the $1.6 million that we received in 2021 and 2022, to pay for those items as we expect them to cost. In my executive summary, we talk about the fact that, and I even have an additional sheet on this, of the items in which we're purchasing and the increased costs in just the 1 year. Most of the items, again, anywhere from 9 to 90% increases, 93% increases. And so we're reviewing all of these, and again, this is what we anticipate they will cost once we bid them out for most of these projects. But if some miraculous purpose and reason, the costs come in much lower, of course, there'll be used less ARPA funding to support these projects. But if they go dramatically over what is budgeted, as you know, we have to bring it back to the council and say, do you want to use other funding sources, including your fund balance, to offset the additional costs? But again, I think we're very conservative in our estimates for costs on these projects. Again, if any of them were found to be way over budget, some of them might have been moved. Or if they, again, we were just simply not comfortable with what the total figure was going to be, we may have removed it altogether. But overall, the 23 to 27 budget looks at, again, covering all the needs that we had originally proposed in 2022 for 2023 with help from ARPA funding. But moving forward, and again, we're really just kind of putting into place 24 through 27 items, 2024, 2027 items in a priority list. And if we find those costs, again, continue to rise way beyond what our costs are, what we have available, it'll have to be a decision in 2023 for your 2024 budget if you want to continue to do those and you feel that they're necessary. So a lot of 2020s in that comment, but I guess at the end of the day, if we look at what we project for the 24 borrowing, our numbers are going up from $3.5 million up to 4.7 and 5.4. And if we continue to do the projects that we look for 26 and 27, you're looking at increasing your borrowing to 6.9. Now, again, very conservative numbers. Things could turn around, prices could go down to normal limits, normal areas. But if the worst case scenario does play out, the borrowing that we would do in 2026 would increase our debt on levy to the area in which we'd have to look at increasing taxes. But again, 4 years down the road. We're not locking anything in. We're giving worst-case scenarios right now. And again, we're just keeping a placeholder for the projects in the order in which we believe is greatest necessary. So I'll take any questions that you have regarding the 2023 through 27 budget. Yes, Alderman Fulop.
So just to clarify, you guys in this budget chose as a department what they had, each department had for the priority that they think should happen in this.
Correct.
So then,
And again, these are really in line with what you've seen for the last 5 years, obviously.
no, I get that. So then, all the way on the end, almost the last page. So you have other departments, right? And my question to you is, a lot of those are, I think I saw 115,000 for some computer networking replacement. You had some other things with IT-related stuff in the capital budget. Why aren't we putting that on an expense lease? As this technology continues to evolve, we hit this burst of, hey, I want to spend 120, 150, or 200,000 for a computer repair investment versus I see what corporations and other people do, whether it's a 3-year or 5-year or 7-year lease, to put that on an expense cycle so you're getting the update to the technology on a regular basis, because it's always evolving. You're always dealing with the virus and the attacks, and you need to have both the software and the hardware to support that kind of security and integrity. Just a general question.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's two parts to that. One, again, we'd be looking at this on a case-by-case basis. The only problem with going to a lease program and an operational program is levy limits. So when we're literally right now, and I'll kind of give you a preview of our operational budget, levy limits is allowing us to increase our overall levy by 1.6%. I'm trying to squeeze the Department of Revenue to agree with me that I think we are allowed more than that, because I left some money on the table last year. But the bottom line is that if we do $160,000, excuse me, no, 1.6%, it equates to $130,000 more levy I can spend in 2023 than I did in the previous year. Raises alone are $208,000. I'm $75,000 underwater. If I add more operational costs, including a lease, I'm even more underwater. So not to say it's a great idea, it is a great idea when you have the levy space to do so.
Got it. I'm not saying we got to do it in 2023. I'm just saying as we build our strategy moving forward, clearly we've heard comments about how tight the economy is and watching expenses. I just think from a strategic perspective, we've met with Alderperson Webb on, hey, what do we want to do with this IT security, and we proposed some things that I think we move forward with. I just think long-term, let's have a vision as to how we could balance that such that we're not taking a capital impact all the time.
Sure.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, Alderperson Rusniak.
Yeah, I was a big proponent of that Wilson and union realignment.
Yes.
How did that cost go up 93%? That's
Yeah,
insane.
yeah. So when we reviewed how that would work out with the property value or the property around it and what was underneath it, we found out that the project would not be able to be done the way we originally planned. So it's kind of a brand-new project. And one that, again, has somewhat made the backseat of the plan, only if we can find a different way to do it.
So I'm thinking, maybe we got to take another look at that, because
Yeah, that's absolutely,
that's
yeah.
insane.
We, at this point in time, are not looking that, you know, again, unless we can find a different way to do that, we
It
would
seemed
not
like
be doing
a
that.
good priority last year or the year before.
Yeah, I mean,
But not
for
at-
those
not at
that are
these
wondering
prices.
about that project, again, the concept was, when we received that portion of Union Street, and we were trying to slow down traffic coming in from the north, we thought, well, if you get them to go straight
Sure.
down Wilson all the way to 60, and then they can go north or east and west, that will, again, get some of the traffic off of Union Street, which, again, has been a directive of the council with some of the issues that we're having on 3rd and 4th and 5th. So, but the realignment, again, project that as we originally engineered was not going to be done and be able to be done the way that we wanted to.
Sure.
So,
Good. The good news is, I had the time over the weekend to go through this page by page. One of Daryl's projects, Daryl, can you come up for a second? One of his projects is cutting down the hill from Borland Farms to Pheasant Run. You're gonna do that for $20,000? That's it? How are you gonna do that?
I actually think this was a project years ago when the subdivision from the Neville Farms was gonna go in, and this
Right.
was all made out with the county. And I think we took over some of that road, and we were supposed to get some of the financing from them to help. And so it wasn't just, I think our share was 20,000, I think we were supposed to get some money. And again, John's not here, or Jason Shaw, this was
So are
kind
you
of their
gonna do that
project.
project for 20,000 or not do it?
Again, I think that's another project that's, if you can find the money for it, it'd be great to do, but there's so many other priorities in the city that need to be done. And my comment is streets, you know, I'd rather see you stick it in the streets and keep them going. And again, but
I can
that's.
go along with that.
And Paul would say fire engines, and Randy would say more out here, but
That hill
again,
isn't that important, Darryl.
that's my part of it. I'd rather see a lot more spent in the
The hill's
streets.
important because of visibility problems, but there really, to my knowledge, hasn't been any problems there. There's never been any accidents there, I don't think.
And exactly that,
So-
as I come in once in a while from the airport that way, even reducing the speed limit coming in there can make it safer again too, but
That would
I
do
don't
it.
know of any, and again, you can check with the police
Or a
chief,
caution
of
sign on the
accidents
other
that have
side of the
even been
hill.
there, so how do you fix something that's really not been a problem? It would just be visibility.
You get any complaints from Borland Farms exiting?
No, not really.
Because those would be the people that are affected by this.
No. If the people are doing the speed limit, everything's safe out there.
Okay.
If.
Well, Steve, let's take that 20,000 and put it toward Union and Wilson.
I'm thinking
But-
new IT network, so.
Nowadays, $20 or 20,000 gets you the equipment on site, and that's about it. It's just the
Yep.
cost of everything, it just gone so skyrocketing.
President Haggy.
Well, I do have just a few comments and questions. Mostly it's going to be comments, having gone through the budget book. I think the items that are proposed for '23, I support all of them. It's well thought out and keeps us moving forward. What we do after that with the borrowing, I guess that will be a lot bigger discussion next year than what we'll have tonight. So I'm just going to go through the various departments, comments, questions, whatever. So with fire and rescue, in 2025, new mechanical warning siren is going to be put in to replace 2 electronic and obsolete sirens. I spoke this over with Paul, and it's the most efficient way to do it, and the sirens are actually better, more durable than the electronic ones, which were put in the 80s and are problematic. In 2026, we've got the satellite fire station proposed. That's for $2.4 million, and that will be if needed or as needed, depending on growth in the area as well as growth on the call volume. So if there are more calls in that area, that one will likely take place at that time. But for right now, it's again, it's a placeholder. So then, going to the electric utility, a number of new vehicles are proposed. All of them are expensive. There's 2 bucket trucks, 1 pickup truck, 1 digger truck. All of them will be 4-wheel drive, which I think is very important to have, so that we don't end up, we've got some rural service, and with what we just had happen the last few days, you could easily bury a truck if it didn't have the 4-wheel drive. What I would recommend, though, when these things get quoted, is that hopefully they'll have the blind spot sensors as well as backup cameras where possible, because that definitely makes them safer and easier to operate. Moving on to parks, we've got in the library in 2023, some of the floor needs replacement for $18,000, siding for $450,000 to protect woodwork, et cetera. But those come out of fund balance, I believe, from the library. That's not actually a GO debt. Independence, let me see here. Oh, Independence Park. We've got $40,000 to $45,000 a year going in there. And we talk about it every year. I'll bring it up again. We need to see if somehow there is a permanent fix where we stop spending that much money year by year, because over the years that that's been remedied and worked on, and the money continues to be dumped in there just for monitoring it, we've got about $900,000 put into it in the last 20. And if we could find a way to move past that, that would be excellent. I did mention to Ian and to Steve about the Link building. It needs refurbishing in 2026, and the question was, do we actually need that facility? And it came back, yes, we can't just walk away from it because it serves apartments, et cetera. You can't really just walk away. Is it heavily used? That question I don't have the answer for, but it is used anyway. So, but nonetheless, there's not much we can do about that because of contracts, et cetera. The police department, they will be adding a significant number of new vehicles over the next number of years, and it looks like all of those vehicles will be hybrids. So they should be a lot more fuel efficient, and it might allow them to sneak around, at least when they're starting up, because they can start silently, be able to sneak up on them. So that might be a really good thing.
And if you put their rear view cameras in, you can see what's coming up behind you.
There you go. Out in the sewage area, we've got 2.2 million going into the aeration basin and $320,000 going into the clarifiers. And by doing these items, it's saving in the future a lot of cost of replacement out in the treatment plant. It's being very prudent to do these things and keep the cost down, because the money is there to do it. If we were to do a rebuild out there, it would blow our budget. So if we can do these things, we may get another 20 years out of that plant. That's not official, that's just a comment I'm making. Then we've got TID 12, we've got streets to do out there. 2023 and 2024 Innovation Way is listed as $3,750,000 each year. I believe it's $3,750,000 total, not for each year, but that's the way it's listed.
Yeah, it's if installed, it'll be 2023, unless, of course, it gets delayed another year, but.
Right, and that particular street, that again will happen depending if TID 12 moves forward with the construction between, I guess you would say between the Dream Center and over toward.
Signacast.
Yes. So that may not happen at that point, but that is the big one that's out there. There are a number of dump trucks being replaced. One in particular is a tandem axle. I believe it's moving to a single axle. In the past, we put in tandem axle trucks, but it's found they're not as maneuverable. They're harder to get around, especially with plowing cul-de-sacs. So I think that was the reason that was being changed the other way. But there's still very significant cost to replace them. So it's just keeping our fleet up to date. In 2025, we're looking at a new airport terminal building. And the question is, will it actually be built in that year? And Daryl is shaking his head no, so we'll see where that goes. But
And again, a lot of that has to do with in the small amount of money that you have in there is because we only pay a percentage of what the total federal money that goes into those projects.
Our portion is 5%. And because the building is already there, I believe that's being used as our 5% contribution for the construction of it. So shouldn't be any outlay on that at all. As far as water projects, there are a lot of projects going on in the next few years with all the different streets that are being worked on. And if you take note in the CIP, a lot of them are 4-inch and 6-inch water mains that are being increased to 8-inch water mains, because 8-inch is the minimum of what we need to fight fires, et cetera, around the community. And through this budget, a lot of that will be improved to 4-inch, from 4-inch and 6-inch on up to 8-inch, depending if we have the money in the future, CIPs for the additional streets. So that's pretty much all that I've got. There aren't really questions. We've gone over this in the last year and for this upcoming year. So we just have to keep going with it. Unfortunately, the costs are very much higher than they were a year ago.
You know, one thing I want to add too is on your desk when you came in tonight, I have an updated copy of the borrowing and the debt schedule. If, again, I gave you a copy of this, please put this in your binders, which again, you've studied and memorized. And on the bottom of that sheet, I wanted to add something, kind of a different viewpoint of it. For the past 6 years that I've been here, we've always tried to keep the debt on levy exactly at $3 million. It's only because of how we borrowed in the past to offset some other debt that we were able to exactly nail $3 million on the head. Had we not had that, it would have been lower, it would have been higher, it would have been, that kind of thing. But again, we try to keep that on exactly $3 million and are able to do so. But if you look at debt as a growth, which means as the community grows, so would your debt on levy grow equally to that, it would be assumed then that your levy, total levy, would not go up, your tax rate will not go up because it's keeping pace with growth. Okay, so I threw this down there, talking with our financial advisor, who, again, we're kind of wrestling with this a little bit, and he said, maybe another way we can look at this is debt on levy based on growth, which again, does not affect your tax rate, but again, would keep pace with your needs for debt. So if you look at that bottom line, which we've added to it, if you figure that the amount of debt is equal to the pace of growth, those are the new debt on levy levels in which we'd want to try to stay at or below to be able to keep our tax rate from going up due to debt. So that's a very healthy number and a very approachable number. If that is the way we go and look at doing that, we would, again, not have to raise taxes due to debt for the foreseeable future. Matter of fact, I don't think until I don't see actually in this entire spectrum of things in which we ever get to the point where we would have, where we would be above those numbers. So that's a different way to look at it, and I think one that we can probably live with, even though we know a lot of these costs are going to go up. Any questions? Any other comments? Yes.
I just want to say I went through this and I think things make sense and a lot of things are sort of on the fence as some of the other people have talked about and others, but I think we trust the prioritization of the department heads and hopefully the costs do go down so that we can have the funds necessary to do all the things that we want to do and maintain that without having to raise taxes.
And if you look back on past budgets, 5-year budgets, I mean, it's shifted, it's changed. As you get complaints about this street or that street, we've maybe moved them up, or we've reviewed their PASER rating, we've reviewed their underground rating, and determined if that should be moved up, and that can happen, and that will happen as we continue to do things. That Wilson Avenue, Union Street, again, is a good example of that, of a project that, based on just simply how you want to go about engineering that and how you can do that project, has changed. That will change the direction of where in the list that we do it.
Yeah.
So, yes, Alderman Rosniak.
Can we have Paul Stevens come up for just a second? I got a question for Paul. He's sitting back there and has not had a chance tonight. I want you to feel left out, Paul.
That was by design.
Yeah. I'm sure he was crushed.
All right, Paul, in 2026, we're proposing building an additional fire station I'm of the opinion that you need more full-time personnel long before you need an additional fire station. What do you think about that? What do you say about that?
Well, I think it's inevitable that we will need to add full-time staff as funds become available.
Right.
So if funds are not available for additional full-time staff, because our current fire station is centrally located for the paid-on-call people, I would propose moving the current on-duty staff that is down at the downtown fire station out to the new station where the call volume seems to dictate a better location.
Otherwise, you wouldn't have enough staff for both places, right?
Correct.
If we build an additional one and we still maintain the fire station, you won't have enough staff.
Right, and for the paid-on-call people to respond to the Highway K location, I think it's a little bit further for the majority of the people. So it makes more sense to staff that satellite station with paid-on-premise people.
But you still need more full-time personnel.
Yeah, we need more paid-on-premise personnel.
Right, that's what I meant.
So the 2023 operational budget, which you will review in the next month or so, includes more paid-on-premise staff, but no more full-time, with benefits. So we're doing the paid-on-premise with more part-time people.
So in reality, what's happening is we're taking half steps compared to, can we shower 12 more people, 12 more full-time people and have them sitting in a house? Yeah, absolutely. But is that the direction we want to go? No, we want to take baby steps. And to getting to where we are comfortable and we are busy, but that again, we can continue to make sure at the end of the day that we are serving the people and the time value in which they believe they should be served.
Well, only you two guys can figure that out.
It's a constant challenge, but so far, the last 5-6 years, with the support of the Common Council, we've added, 5 or 6 additional full-time people as funds became available, and it has had zero impact on the levy. We've done it on a incremental basis as funds were available.
We certainly appreciate that, and every taxpayer in Hartford appreciates that.
And there's no doubt, if we do wait till 2026 to add additional full-time staff, we'll be up here asking for a referendum to increase operational costs because 3 people, $300,000 roughly, that's not going to fit underneath our levy limit.
Sure.
Just a quick question, seeing you brought that up. Obviously, 2022, 2026, we have 4 more years of growth. Will that growth help alleviate any of that? 300, maybe 400,000 by 4 years from now?
Yeah, it definitely could. We have some other needs, and, as we've alluded to tonight. Every department needs additional people. We are the operational budget as we're proposing preliminary right now. We originally had in there 3 1/3 more employees, full-time employees. Now we've cut that down to 1 because as clearly stated by this council, we need to live within our means. And so I've cut that down to 1, in essence, full-time staff member. But again, it's, like I said, and the mayor, you've alluded to this too in our private conversations, is let's get rid of levy limits and we'd be able to do what we want to do. And then they would be able to do, the county would be able to do what they wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. Is that it?
And their questions, if not, it's all yours for the vote.
Okay, for the vote, discussion and consideration of the 2023-2027 CIP budget? Anyone looking to President Hagee, second by Alderperson Wozniak.
Motion by Alderperson Hagy, seconded by Alderperson Rusniak, approving the 2023 to 2027 CIP budget.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried for adjournment. Alderperson Fulop, Alderperson Sikora.
Motion by Alderperson Fulop, seconded by Alderperson Sikora for adjournment at 8:39.
Thank you. And thank you for the chickens. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We are adjourned.